Hello, everybody, and welcome to Tech Friday right here on twitch.tv/DC Lasair. And let me turn off Pretzel here real quick. There we go. Hats, yes. There are two hats today.
There are indeed. I felt like I had to step up the game a little bit. Gotta if I'm not going to be guesting with the Hatter-monster, I have to at least wear some form of hat. Like it just felt like the right thing to do.
Clearly, you've made good choices today. And by the way, I have a guest over there. Yeah. You can type !guest into my chat and get all the details that you need. So we have Painting Pirate, Mini Painter, Streamer, TTRPG Performer, Voiceover Artist, and General Rogue Bard. Painting Pirate, say hellos to the peoples.
Hellos to the peoples. Hello, peoples.
And you can plug your other stuff too now. So,
well, first and most importantly, Stephen.
Hey, Stephen.
hello. But yeah, streaming Monday, Thursday, Saturday for the most part. I bounce around, do a whole bunch of nonsense. Occasionally guesting on people's one shots when they make the mistake of inviting me, such as DC's with the food themed continuation of chaos that was last year's charity stream collection. Yeah, paint a bunch of minis and generally be opinionated when painting on the internet. Lots of ranty streams, but people seem to enjoy them, so that's probably a good thing.
And let's not forget Final Fantasy expert.
Oh well, of course. There's the ongoing process of very slowly playing through the entire series from 1 through to we are currently on 8. We'll see how long it takes me to get caught up. But it's been a fun process, like just getting to share my sheer joy of that series with folks, especially people who weren't as familiar with some of the older ones, which is what I grew up with. Well, I was a teenager, but getting to share that experience of some of my formative fantasy stories, such as it were.
They've been really awesome streams, so
thank you.
Thanks for going through all that, and the depth of knowledge on those that you possess for Final Fantasy is amazing.
Leverage my hyperfixations. Yes.
So, I'm just going to adjust a thing real quick. Oop. Okay, thing adjusted. All right. So, speaking of awesome streams, you do a thing on Thursday nights called AIW, All Influencer Wrestling, using the WWE, is it 2K23? Is that the name?
2K23 is the current one, yes.
Yeah, 2K23.
That's what kicked off the whole thing.
All right, so tell us about that, what it is, and how it got started.
So the whole thing kicked off, as most things do with me, with a joke that went way too far. So what initially happened, it was one of those weird serendipitous situations that kind of overlap and a weird bizarre entity forms out of them, which is much how I came to be. But at the time, it so happened that at the time when WWE 2K23 was coming out, which was a much hype one. So to give a little bit of history behind that little series, I haven't played, I used to be a wrestling kid. I was a huge fan of it growing up, like back in the PlayStation 1 era with the SmackDown games. Absolutely loved those. Those were great. Fell out of things when I hit adulthood. Kind of fell a bit more back into wrestling a few years ago. It was actually the Hardy Boys making their return at WrestleMania, like in 2017, I think, that pulled me back in. And then the New Day kept me around. So that kind of revisited that very lapsed fandom for me. But at the time where this particular idea came in, it was at the height of certain things kicking off in the TTRPG space regarding a certain summit. And because I am a snarky jerk, and whenever I get a joke in my head, I cannot move on until I actually create it, I made a quick promo logo that was a parody of all Elite Wrestling's All Out pay-per-view. So I changed it to be the Sold Out pay-per-view because that was funny to me. And so I threw that in. And then that kind of pivoted into I wanted to showcase 2K23 a little bit because back in January, did a watch along stream for this year's Royal Rumble, which actually went surprisingly well. Turned out there were a few people in the community who I did not realize were wrestling fans, such as yourself, and a few others who were at least interested, didn't really know like what it was, but were down to hang out and give it a shot. People seem to enjoy it. And since the character creation is impressively vast in these types of series of games, I hit on the idea of, well, why don't I just give it a bit and see if I can do as a channel point redemption, have me throw them into the game. And since the ridiculous clout chaser accusation that was going on for a bunch of people in the 2D RPG space, I leaned into that. And so therefore it became all influencer wrestling where people go to chase clout, which it turned out people actually kind of vibed with. It was, I figured I'd maybe do it for a week or two and then people would get bored and move on. That's not what happened. Turns out that's not what happened at all.
Yeah, and that was a really clever bit on your part, going, "Hey, everybody, would you like me to help make a wrestler? Or would you like to put a wrestler?" Instantly involving the community in a thing. Well, it was a really smart move, and yeah, people really jam for that. People are in cheering for their characters, and me, exactly. I created the biggest heel I could, so I'm constantly trying to encourage,
literally
heal them. So.
What I didn't realize, and this, I inadvertently tapped into a thing too that I didn't realize. It was actually having a brief chat with Trip and Crutch about this just the other day, which from way back, like when I was still a teenager and a wrestling fan, I'd forgotten about the concept of e-feds. Back in the day, for like we used to have the e-feds, the on the old message boards where you would like have your wrestler that you created, and it would be terrible because it was done through forum posts and it was absolutely a nightmare. But I inadvertently tapped into that for the people who are already wrestling fans, because what Tripp had pointed out to me, there are still a lot of people who run that type of thing. It's around. Unfortunately, the view that you tend to think of when you think of somebody who is your typical wrestling fan probably isn't too different still from the somewhat negative stereotype that you may picture when thinking of that type of thing. And so a lot of the people who are running those tend to fall into that ballpark. So I had inadvertently stumbled into the desire for this type of thing that is more welcoming and not run by terrible people. So that kind of, it's like, oh, that's a need that I didn't even realize was a thing people wanted, but had inadvertently managed to tap into that particular oil well, such as it were.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to see. You put a lot of work into it. Like, we'll get into a moment. But I want to mention this now, and we'll get to a screen cap of your editing process in a little bit. Yeah. But I made a promo for the character. I came up with a ridiculous voice. I thought of promos from The Rock and other things, and I mean I even threw in wrestling with a broken freaking neck in there. So Kurt Angle reference for those that didn't know. And you made a whole segment out of it. I was thinking it would just be something you could throw in, like just a pure voiceover during a ad break or something, but you went ahead and did a whole sequence on this, and it was incredible. But I'm like, wow, you put a lot of work into it, and I didn't intend for it to make for you. So.
I'd always wanted to do that because I said in the Discord earlier on that if people ever wanted to do stuff like that, I was totally down with it. I'd always envisioned wanting to do something like that. Like what I had in my head for these promos initially was, if anyone is familiar with Up Up Down Down, the channel run by Xavier Woods, Austin Creed, that's like one of their big premium, like the big shows that they do regularly is GM mode, where Woods and Tyler Breeze compete in the game's GM mode against each other. And what I really liked when they initially started doing that, back when they were using one of the old PlayStation 2 games, I think it was they would occasionally get some of the wrestlers to give them promos. And they would do it in a little like picture in picture type of situation. But that's easy to do because that's them. And I always wanted to do that, but the way in which the game didn't support me doing that was one of those situations where I could very easily have done what was probably the intelligent and sensible thing and done it exactly the way that you had suggested, with just like an audio log type recording. However, I have never professed to be a sensible or intelligent person. I will always overcommit to the bit. And given that my predominant motivator to do most things in life is spite, if the game is going to not cooperate with me, that just makes me want to do it more.
So, diving into this a little further, have you been into usually this category is called machinima, which is like red versus
Yes.
blue and things like that.
Mhm.
Was that something you were into as well, and you kind of thought of
Yeah,
that?
it's something I've always found really fascinating. I've never had the time or the skill set to really dive into it myself, but yeah, I've always loved like the red versus blue is. I mean, when you think of machinima, that's the example everyone always goes
Mhm.
to. But like, I think I was obsessed back in the. God, I don't want to think about how long ago it was that these came out, but there was a relatively popular short series called Dead Fantasy a while back, which was essentially a mashup of like, it started out Dead or Alive versus Final Fantasy, which was these, for the time, incredibly well done like fight sequences, like fighting game style, with characters. I think they'd ripped them from Advent Children, or like, I don't know where they ripped them from Dissidia, I think was where they got the character models from. And they did this. It was one person who did it all, I believe. These phenomenal like super anime set piece battles, very Advent Children style. And I thought those were absolutely amazing. And then watching how that type of thing has kind of evolved. There's a creator on YouTube, Denmo McStronghuge, which is an amazing name, fairly prominent in the Final Fantasy XIV community. His creation, Mr. Face, does a lot of music videos with the Final Fantasy XIV engine. And I love the work that Denmo has done. They do some absolutely amazing stuff. So that type of thing has always been something I really wanted to dig into doing more, but have never really had the time to throw into it. And as with a lot of things I wind up doing with streaming, I find it easier for me to devote the time to doing a thing if I can tell myself I'm doing it for something productive. So with it being, oh no, this is a thing for stream, I'm doing this for an audience, and therefore in my brain, it has become a valid investment of my time. So I've tricked myself into learning these techniques. Is essentially what I've done. Is which is one of the reasons I started out with the project in the first place, was I wanted to learn. I wanted to learn more about video editing, which is why I started throwing them on YouTube, and then that kind of tipped a bit more into wanting to do more in the audio engineering sphere, which the way things have evolved over the pandemic for that with voice actors is it's no longer enough to just be a VO artist. You have to have some degree of basic understanding, at least of audio engineering, because so much is done from a home studio now. And as is kind of expected, when studios realized they can save the cost of having VO artists come into studio and just get them to do it from home, they didn't really want to go back to that in a lot of cases. Like, oh, we've been able to shift this responsibility and this cost onto the artist. Cool, let's keep doing that. So with that being the way that industry has kind of shifted a bit, I wanted to learn a bit more about doing that as well, which was where some of the music editing has started to come into it a little bit as well.
All right, and getting in a bit into editing, I first want to talk about the ads that you did. You did fantastic ads for Steven and for Val.
Yes.
And I'm wondering, what you use, because there's also an amount of lip flap control, it looked like, unless you
Mhm.
just let the model go. I don't know. So take us through the process, what you use. I take it it's an After Effects thing. And one moment, please.
Sure thing.
Sorry about that. Okay,
No, you're good.
go for it.
So it is not an After Effects thing. It's more in the lines of what you said, the second thing of just kind of letting the model go. That is, again, it was one of those situations I kind of lucked into with the way that I tend to do everything, which is if I need to use a character for something, Tyrion is my go-to. I've been using him for things since the early 2000s when I first created him back in my Final Fantasy 11 days. And so that's why he became the Clout Missioner. Like I wanted to throw him in as the kind of the overseer of things, because I felt weird. It's interesting because I wanted to have an authority figure for AIW, but I felt weird being the authority figure like myself. But if it's Tyrion, that's different because he's a character and therefore he's not me. So that kind of solved that problem. And the benefit is because he is my Final Fantasy 14 character as well, that game has an extremely robust set of tools called G pose or group pose, where they realized with that game how people love doing things like the machinima style of things, and they want to do fancy screenshots and posing. So that game has an incredibly well featured set of tools in to do things like this, including emotes. And they have it now these days set up to where you can combine the physical emote that your character is doing with a talking motion as well. So I planned out, what I did was I wrote the script out and then kind of planned ahead what motions I would need Ty to do, and then went in and captured video of him doing that, and then just sort of Frankensteined it all together in the end. So it's not so, I didn't explicitly match like the lip flapping up, but I tried to film in such a way that I would be able to position it and get relatively close.
And for those that don't know, lip flap refers to animation every time the character mouth opens and closes, and the speed at which that happens, and trying to sometimes match that lip flap to a voice, especially when anime came over and it was already done. And so American voice actors had dub it, they had to match that open and close of the mouth, which didn't necessarily match English all the time. So you got some strange wording here and there. And people who could do that well were really, really good at it. That's amazing talent. But yeah, so you would have people timing you, and it's a whole thing. But yeah, so that's what lip flap is, if you didn't know. And so now, if I remember right, for the ad you did for Val, you said you added stuff in. Was that taking stuff and adding it into the Final Fantasy engine, or was that
Yeah.
putting it into Premiere?
So yeah, there's two separate aspects to the thing I did for the one that I've done for Val's the Void Door by author V.M. Ayala, available on beneathceaselessskies.com. Published author Space Valkyries. So I split that into two things, because there's the half of it which is the reading of the book itself, which we're not going to address how much in-game gil I spent buying that emote for this purpose. That was ridiculous. Like, oh, this is the thing in game. I could go earn it. It's like, no, I'm on a time constraint. That's just going to buy the damn thing, and threw that in. And that was I wanted that there were most of the aspects to that were just me being kind of trolly and wanting it to be funny, because Val had no idea I was doing it. And in my head, what I wanted was the vision of the person in the big plush chair with the fireplace reading the storybook. That's kind of the vibe I wanted to go for. And so most of the setup around that was just me sneaking into the house in game that Val's like guild free company have created, because I wanted that extra level of, you don't know I'm doing this and I'm doing it in your own house, because that's just funny to me. But the other aspect to it, because I want to do, that's something I want to extend more. And because huge things of what I do are revolving around some degree of pun. When it popped into my head of, okay, doing things like that. Masterpiece theater is in that general thing. And then I realized, ooh, masterpiece theater, there's a pun. We can go down that road. And I drove fully down that road and off the cliff that was at the end of it when the bridge gave way, which is what, so I wanted to do initially it was just there's the little scribbly out effect, which that was me wanting to learn, okay, how do I do a handwriting effect in After Effects? That was me wanting to, or Premiere Pro rather, wanting to learn how to do that. It's like, cool, that's good. But then, because I can never leave well enough alone, I realized, wait, this pans over all of these little video clips into photo frames. How can I switch those out? So then that became a challenge for myself of, oh, how do I do motion tracking in Premiere? How do I switch that out with the little video clip? And it's not done because that took a lot of time and effort to get that done because it was a new thing I'd never done before learning it. So over time, as I start adding more and more of those in, more and more of those very little photo frames in the Masterpiece Theater opening are going to get replaced. So there's going to be some, like the difficult part I'm going to have to figure out for some of those next is that some of them have objects in front of them, which is going to be extremely difficult to work around. And therefore I want to do it because now it's become a challenge. So it's like, okay, how do people do this? But things like that, my general philosophy, good Lord, philosophy to learning how to do things, one of which is not speaking, is coming from improv theater background, I always take the stance that you can never have enough tools in your tool belt. So regarding like that, it's like, okay, if I've learned how to do this thing, that's now a skill I have. And sure, it's not going to be relevant in every situation, but it's a thing I now know how to do. So if it ever becomes relevant, boom, I can just bust that out and throw into it. And I do want to address real quick the question there from JD Lady. How do you get the spoons to do all this? These are the things I just go note to. The answer is ADHD hyperfixation. That is genuinely the answer. Is the way that my brain works is once I latch onto an idea, it becomes a short-term obsession. And so I need to be able to do it. Otherwise, I cannot move on from it. Which is why so many of these, that's why things like AIW became into existence. It's why, it's why I did initially the silly, like, sold out parody logo. It's just the idea popped into my head and it wouldn't leave my head until I made it into existence. So it's one of those things where that kind of level of neurodivergence and that tendency to hyperfixate does allow me to focus hard on doing stuff like this. The downside to it is if I don't, it's going to cause serious limitations in me doing literally anything else. So it's very much a double-edged sword in that regard.
All right, and I just want to take a brief moment and thank you for the resub, Cypher. I appreciate that, and welcome on in. And hello, everybody. So let's see here. Who do we have? We have Steven, JD Lady, Cypher, Sahana, Smolecule. I'm sure I missed people. Lily, hi. Rex, hello. I think that's everyone I've seen so far. If I've missed you, I apologize. So, and I thank everyone for coming on in. Okay, now we're going to continue on the editing thread. And
yes,
our faces will go away. Pirates was kind enough to send me screen captures of what the editing timeline looks like in Premiere. And we'll show it to you. I'll explain what timeline is for those who maybe have not interfaced with editing software before, to give you some idea of what you're looking at. So our faces will disappear. Hopefully our voices will still be here if OBS didn't take away my audio source when I switch scenes.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. And caption should still be up. So let's switch over to that.
I will also preface this by saying, if you are somebody who does do video editing or have ever worked in video editing, I'm sorry, please don't judge me. I am not professionally trained. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm figuring this out as I go, as looking at these screenshots will become immediately apparent.
All right. So to describe what you're seeing, now you're just seeing the bottom portion of the Adobe Premiere software here. So on the left are the clip pool, on the right is the timeline. Timeline advances time forward, left to right, obviously, and then going up and down is everything that happens in that moment. And usually you have video, like on the top image there, video is the top one, and then all the audio underneath. On the bottom one, you see that pink line, that's graphics, that's usually above the video, and you can cut between them. So the top one is once you have edited a normal episode of AIW.
Correct.
With the audio and everything you do, you can see there's where you see the little line there. That's an edit. You can see how nice and neat that looks, and it takes a large amount of time even to do this. Below that is the timeline sequence just for the voiceover thing I did as the golden ticket for the promo piece. And you can see all the cuts, all the audio changes, the graphic going over everything. And how long did this take you? This is okay. So the top bit's about 2 hours. The bottom bit is around what, 2 minutes?
But yeah, I think the whole thing, once I factored in Tyriot's interruption, I think it's about a 3 minute piece overall.
So about 3 minutes. So how long did this take you? About, would you guess?
It's honestly difficult to say because I was working on it kind of here and there between work meetings. It's definitely a good few, I would say a good few hours.
Yeah.
Of work to get it to the point where it was, I'm going to say serviceable, because I'm very much not happy with the end result, but I was on a timeline for it, so I needed it done by this week. So it's a case of like, okay, let me just get this done to a point where it is serviceable. But as an it's difficult because of the way that mine and many of our brains work is it's everything has to be absolutely perfect first time, the curse of the gifted child syndrome. But as it's been the case going through with all of the weekly episodes, I now know what to do better next time. So I'm trying to focus on that quite a bit, because the initial episodes did not look near that neat. I can promise you that.
So yeah, the thing I really want everyone to pay attention to is when we talk about editing, 3 minutes taking multiple hours, like a minute can sometimes take 2 days. It takes a long time to edit this. So, and about how long does just a regular episode take you to put together?
So these days, the regular episodes are actually easy, because I have set myself up to succeed with them now. On this week's took which I actually earlier this morning I started that process going. It's done now. I didn't want to upload it to YouTube whilst doing this because I didn't want to share the bandwidth. But on a good week, like last week's episode, the actual editing, I can do it in half hour, not factoring in rendering time.
Right.
And the reason that has come so easy now is, talking about some of the lessons that have been learned. The big problem I've had with it has been audio balancing. As everyone who has ever streamed knows, it is the bane of all of our existence. So the first time I ever did the episode, it's like, okay, well, I'll just throw this out. And I just had, what I did at that time was I took the Twitch recording down. And the problem with doing that from the Twitch recording is all the audio is in one channel. So if I wanted to say, one of the issues I have with the game is the audio balancing on entrance music sometimes can be really wonky. Like some of them are way lower than others. But because it was all I was working with was the Twitch recording, I had no way to bump up the audio for the entrance music without also bumping up my voice talking over it. So what I have done now is I've shifted to starting to do local recordings, and I have OBS configured to output the game audio and my audio on separate audio tracks. So now I have the ability to mix them differently. So if I need to just bump mine up a little bit or shift the game audio independently, that has made the editing process a million times faster. Just the ability to tweak those things. It still needs more tweaks. For example, I've realized since I started doing those ad breaks, I've realized I need to tweak my OBS settings because those are currently going out into all of the tracks.
Mhm.
So you can see that in that first screenshot, you can see there's those gaps in it in some of the audio tracks. That's me cutting out the duplicated ad audio, which doesn't go out on stream, but because I'm recording into separate audio channels, it gets doubled there. So that's me having to cut those out. This last week was something of an audio nightmare. So today's took slightly longer, and I didn't. There are things I did wrong that unfortunately I cannot fix. Specifically being, actually, it's the promo. The promo is one of the things I can't fix. And the reason is because I screwed up my audio outputs. I did not think about where OBS itself was outputting. It's like, okay, here's mic audio and game audio, boom, that's all I need to worry about. I was incorrect because that was a pre-recorded video. It went out onto the same audio output as a bunch of other stuff, unfortunately, including the mic audio. So there's elements that people who watched it live might have heard where I was live reacting as Ty to Golden Ticket coming out. You can barely hear that in the end recording because I had to bump up, because if I mix those together, the audio is so overpowering and I cannot isolate out the mic audio, unfortunately. But that's, again, lesson learned. I can now go in and tweak those settings. So next time I do that, excellent. Like, and again, like other things, trying to figure out like automation. Like one of the things I screwed up this week, for example, is because this is running this type of thing solo. I mean, dear God, like DC, you are well aware of just how many moving parts running live production for something like this takes. And the ADHD brain does not help with that. When I went live with the show this week, what I had forgotten to do was hit record on the local recording, which I caught very quickly. I caught it like midway through the entrance of the first match. But my solution to that now is going to be automation. And so what I have for the Stream Deck has actually been invaluable for this whole process. I've got now a dedicated panel on my Stream Deck just for AIW. One of which is a button that says go live, which will fade over to the screen, start the intro playing, and put the logo up behind it so that it's ready to go. I just need to tweak that now so that also starts the recording. Like, easy problem to solve, just one of those things of like, I don't think about it until it breaks, but once it breaks, I can fix it. So that's, just continual tweaks with, we saw a couple of times this week where I screwed something up in the audio, like the intro started playing again a few times. So, okay, well, I know how to fix that. I just need to include, when I go back from break, make sure there's a step that turns that off just to make absolutely sure that's gone. Just, yeah, keeping the tweaks up. And I mean, so much of that is the parallel between editing and streaming. Is something goes wrong, you learn from it, you tweak it, you do it better next time.
Is that beeping something you needed to pay attention to?
It's something out. That unfortunately there is a truck outside.
There's a truck outside. Okay.
I will attempt to up my background noise reduction.
Oh, no, it's fine. I just wanted to make sure that you were okay and you didn't have to like bail out of your place.
No, it's fine. It is unfortunately the reality of life as a ground floor apartment in New York City. That's a whole other rant.
That's a whole other rant. Right.
There we go. That stopped, so I can lower the
okay.
But yes.
So I appreciate all the work you're doing for this because it's highly entertaining. If you're not watching it, it's on Painting Pirates channel every Thursday. 7 p.m. Eastern is the start of the stream, and then by 7:30-ish, we kick off with the AIW show. So definitely check that out. It's amazing. It's a lot of fun. The matches are all controlled by the AI, so we have no idea what's happening. Pirate does an excellent job calling it out and narrating live as things are going on. And even when the game messes up, he has quick responses for it, and it's really well done.
That's that live theater background coming into, as a toolkit. those tools in the belt. That is me working Ren fairs doing live stage combat where swords have broken on stage before, and you just have to kind of vamp and run through it. Like it's a skill that is incredibly helpful to have in the tool belt.
All right, and hello, Panda. Welcome on in. Good to see you. All right. So I'm going to set up our next bit. We're going to go over the, unless, did you have anything else you want to say about AEW or the creation process?
Yeah,
there's
the one aspect I did want to dive into a little bit more on that kind of promo bit was creativity and problem solving, and the way that it can apply in both editing and streaming is I've had to fight against the game to get that to work. In actually kind of a lot of cases to do this. There's some functionality that they used to have apparently back in that universe mode a long time ago that they've now taken out, which was frustrating to me because one of them was promos. So if you watch that promo that the ticket was covering, and you can see this kind of with the if you look at that screenshot there of Premiere, you can see over in that left panel just the sheer number of media sources I have pulled in to do that one thing and the way it's all Frankenstein's together. What I had to do with that was record. So that there's that first part there, the big, yeah, you can see that first like minute long part, that block, that's Golden Ticket's entrance, which I now know next time I do this, I'm going to go back and do in the preview mode because I did not want the announcer over that. That annoyed me that I didn't catch that ahead of time. But then you see in that, so that V1 line with all those little tiny chopped together bits, what that is, and you can see actually over, if you look at the left, you can see the little match graphic of Golden Ticket versus I used Zero for it because he happened to be the first one the game landed on. That was me going through, editing all of Golden Ticket's taunts, finding all of the taunts that looked like you were doing something in a promo. I put Zero outside of the ring so Golden Ticket was facing him and had him taunt at him, filmed that, and then used the game's replay feature to go through, save that as a recording so I could then tweak the in-game camera angles to cut around a bit to mask where I've stitched bits together. And then went and downloaded from YouTube some files people had got of just actual WWE crowds cheering and booing, and threw that over it as well. So it was just I wish they had just the ability to have a character cut a promo in the game, but they don't. Or actually, that's like they do have, there's some custom video editing in the game, and you can have like promos. It's how I did the initial Tyrians promo for the first episode. The problem is there's no way to full screen preview those videos. So you have to kind of capture down the little preview window, which means the resolution's terrible. And it means there's this huge jarring jump from the entrance to the promo, which I didn't want. So yeah, that was, it's not so much square peg round holing as I'm trying to build an IKEA cabinet, only half of the parts were for a sofa. There are no instructions, and instead of an Allen wrench, they gave me a fish. But again, that power of spite, because the game did not want to give me the tools I needed to do what I wanted, I am not sensible enough to go, oh, I shouldn't do the thing. Like, oh, now I'm more determined than ever to do it. And I don't care how difficult it's going to be on me. In a bizarrely rare instance of actual self-organization, I now actually have a Google Doc where I went through and watched every single like crowd or opponent taunt in the game, identified the ones that looked like they could be a part of a promo, listed them in the Google Doc along with a little note as to what the style is. So I now have that to go back to. So if I want to do this again, I can tweak people's taunts to plan that ahead of time. And it is,
oh wow,
again, spite is a powerful motivator.
That's incredible.
Exactly, Stephen. Yeah, it's how most OBS plugins come and say, oh, you can't do it? We'll see about that. But to be fair, and to be fair, like I was being maybe a little harsh on fighting against the game. It's not designed for what I'm doing it for. Like the way that most people play through the universe mode is they make their character and they follow their character through. They're not seeing it as a show. They're more interested in the results and the actual matches. all this extra stuff of taking it to that next level is not what the game is designed for. Again, I am too stubborn to not want to make it work. So.
All right, I'm just doing a quick screen capture here of the other thing we're talking about. So if you want to say hi to people or anything for a moment while I make it look pretty.
I will happily and I'll continuing on like ways I want to do this, like learning and doing it better. As I've been learning a lot about video editing, and we didn't really touch on this at all, but the audio editing has been an interesting part as well that I didn't expect to be a thing. Not from the video perspective, but I started to run into copyright issues because even with the entrance music for actual wrestlers that's in the game, whilst I haven't gotten the full copyright strike on it, audio licensing for that type of stuff can be weird. Like even though it's a wrestler's entrance music, there might be split ownership between the WWE and whoever recorded it. So I've been slowly going through and trying to replace some of all of the entrance music and mod it out with stuff from the YouTube library, which I know is going to be fine. That's the whole point. But that's now tweaked into, okay, if I'm doing this already, I want to make it really good. So, okay, this thing has, let's say the song has a 30-second like intro to it, but I need to cut down to like 10 because that's how it'll work with an entrance. So I've been kind of learning a bit more about cutting that down and stitching it together relatively seamlessly. And that's something I've slowly started to get better at. So where I've now started to get more creative with it. Like it was mentioned last night on the stream, how timed with Val's entrance now, there's a timed boom, tank main with her stomp and pyro going off. And that was enabled by the things I've learned about doing the audio engineering and getting that kind of synced up and tweaked, and getting faster. That means it's more feasible. Like previously, I was initially when I started, I was like, I want to just keep it simple. And I still need to keep things relatively simple because there is still a surprising backlog of people who have signed up. I need to get through creating. The character creation still takes a while because that's me going back and forth with people and making sure they're happy with the design before I start using it. But I want to like get a little more creative with things like the entrance music because it's fun. It's honestly really satisfying for me to do it, and that's honestly been the big satisfaction with this project for me as a whole. Is I didn't expect how happy people get when they see the creation come to life, and so to get doing those little extra tweaks, making people happy makes me happy. And so I'm more than happy to put that effort in if it's making people thrilled with what the end result is, which again, that's the reason why I do it all AI. Is I would never take control and do it, because if I were to control something, then it's like my skill level is being involved, and at that point it's like, okay, let's say I've got, I don't know, like just looking in chat, for example, let's say there's a match where Panda and Cypher as Glix and Jeneth are fighting. Who do I take control of in that situation? Like that's a situation that I don't want to risk any kind of hurt feelings. Whereas if it's the AI doing everything, it's like, it is what it is. There's no risk of somebody feeling put out because they are on a losing streak because of something I have done. The losing streaks have happened, as myself and Cypher, both of our characters, have experienced, but it's easier, I think, to stomach if it's random and not a result of something I'm actively doing. So I always want people to feel fairly treated, I guess.
Awesome. Oh, I thought of another question for you on this, if I can remember it, because I just lost it again. The creator wrestler thing. You can take people's creator wrestler. Now, is that a cross-platform thing? Is there like a central server that these can be uploaded to, or do you have to be directly on PC? Or you couldn't take someone's.
It is cross-platform.
PS5. Okay.
And we've done that with a few people. So I always wanted, when I first kicked this off, I always did not want to gate it to people who had to have purchased the game. So that's where the form creation came out, and where there's that back and forth, which again, I love doing. It is time consuming, but I never ever wanted to gate it behind a product people have to purchase. But yeah, so you have to have a 2K account to be able to do it, but there's no gating between like the PlayStation version, the Steam version, the Xbox version. It all goes up into this. You have to explicitly turn it on to do it, but you can set it to where your custom creations get uploaded. There's a community portal where people can upload whatever they've created to, and anyone can download it. So for a few of the creations, that's what like Tripping Crutch has done it that way. Martimus did that with Abel. Renace did it with his too. Like Zeromus has done it with that. There's a few people who have done, like Sparks did it his that way, which is great for me because I don't then have to create it. So yeah, there's that, and at some point I might throw up. So like I've had a request to throw up like the custom arena I created, for example. I've been asked to put that up at some point when it's ready, so that people can then like test their entrances in it to make sure it works like super well. But yeah, it's all up there, and like there's a community like place where people can just up and download, and then the music gets a little tricky with that because like obviously you can't upload custom music. I've actually had to mod the game to get the custom music in there, but that's easy enough to do. I don't mind doing that so much.
All right, and let's take people through the process of they want to join up, and you still have slots for wrestlers coming in.
Yes.
You go to your channel, you do the channel point redemption, and what happens after that?
So after that, so you do the channel point redemption. One of two things: like if you have the game, brilliant, create it, send it to me. There's like that you can tag things in the community portal. So most people have been tagging it with either Painting Pirate or AIW, which is great, easy for me to find. If not, what will happen is when you redeem the channel points, either myself or one of the mods will DM you a link to a Google form that I put together, and that has a bunch of the questions that I need to create the initial pass. And once that, how it usually works is once that is done, I will then take a screenshot of what I've got for the initial run through, DM it back for approval, make any tweaks that are requested, and then I mean that's kind of it at that point. It's a straightforward process. Like I said, a lot of work on my end. It's definitely it's interesting because it's arguably easier the more detail I get. But similarly, if all I get is a vague concept, that's also kind of easy because now I don't have to worry so much about matching exactly what is in the game. There's been a whole spectrum of that. There's been folks who have given me very explicit details and screenshots. There are people who have been giving me more of a vague idea. There are some people, Stephen, for example, who actually went through and like watched, I assume somebody on YouTube going through the character grade. He's like, okay, I want this part in there. I went through to it to an extreme detail. I was like, great, cool, love that. But honestly, all of it's great. Like either way, obviously the less I have to work with, the longer it maybe takes, but it also maybe lets me throw a little creativity involved. What I found is that people who aren't necessarily wrestling fans tend to skew more on the side of giving me the creativity to do it with, and they're actually kind of some of my favorite ones because those are the ones I get the best response from of, oh, that looks amazing when they realize what we'll do with it. Like, which that's actually kind of funny, like to bring that up as kind of a point that just entered my head. What I was not expecting, very much did not expect, was how many people wanted to throw their TTRPG characters in. Like when I started doing this, what I imagined was people were going to want to throw themselves in, and it very much started out that way. Like, you know, myself, Stephen, Val went in there, and Renae's put himself in as well. The person who I blame / thank for it is Sahana, because Cypher I think was the first person to use to request like her like Diablo character in there, which was cool, but it's still like a human, so it's easy to put that together. Sahana gave me a Furbolg. And so Cypher, I was saying you were, I think, one of the first people to try to sign up with a character who wasn't you. Like you kind of broke that chain of the person being the character. It's like, no, this is a character that you've got, which I already said was an option, but like you were the first person to really do that side of it. And then Sahana was like, here's my TTRPG character. They're a Furbolg. And which again, I will. A challenge just means I'm going to make sure I figure out a way to do it. So, because I was able, I think because I was able to pull off a Furbolg in the character creator, I've noticed now there was this huge trend of people giving their D&D characters in because they've realized I can do more fantasy type stuff in there. There's that as an option. So I didn't expect that, but I think it's led to a wonderful variety of different character types and character designs in there. And as I said, some like Golden Ticket actually is a great example of, you had asked for the dollar sign of chest fur, which the character creator doesn't technically let you do, but with a painted on symbol and a interesting application of embossing effects, I was able to make it look kind of hair-like. So we figured out a way to make it work. So.
And I appreciate it because it's fantastic to see, and I giggle every time. So
it's so good. I love it. That's one thing I've really enjoyed about it, is you can tell in some of the designs the people who have been wrestling fans for a while and are very much leaning into a reference or an archetype. it's really fun. But that's honestly one of the things my goals with this project was to make it enjoyable for people who have a extensive wrestling background, which is why I will occasionally throw in the commentary lines, like referring to the ring apron as the hardest part of the ring, like
right. I love that
running joke. But I wanted it to be accessible to people who have never watched a wrestling match in their life, and that seemed I surprisingly, I think I've kind of nailed that. Like, people from both sides of that spectrum seem to be really vibing with it. So it's like, cool, we got a good thing going. Ride it till the wheels fall off.
Yeah. All right. I briefly forgot I did want to talk to you about mini painting, but we're at the hour mark approximately, so we're going to take a 5-minute break. And when we come back, we'll dive into mini painting and the things you use for that when you're streaming it. So we'll be right back with more Painting Pirate. See you in 5. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I see a request for more hats, so we've done about 63%, we figure. Here or there.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take, yeah. And hi, Vancouver by night. Hello, Lady Luck 34. So, my guest today, Painting Pirate. And we're going to cover the painting part of Painting Pirate and talk about mini painting on stream. So,
indeed, because we've covered the air dub. Move on to the mini streaming, because I am, after all, a streamer who wears many hats.
Excellent. Love that they all match, right?
I basically have one color palette. Yeah.
I just did a quick grab. For those just coming in, I keep a supply of hats over on it's on the left side of me, but for everyone it's opposite. They're right over here, so there's like 8 hats just available for me to switch out of or put on.
I feel like we need a comparison between your stream hat set and Steven's stream hat set, just the difference in the scope of hats. I think that would be an interesting side-by-side comparison.
I will lay them all out and take a picture, and you can just see I'll post it, and you can see the massive hats. I think on a volume level, Steven will have more hats because tiny hats are clearly superior. And so he can do a lot more.
I suspect the same base coverage area, though. I think it'll work out the same,
right?
The same physical dimensions covered by hats.
All right, I gotta take a couple of those off because
that's.
Well, I do wear a lot of hats. A lot of hats wear heavy on the head. Hey. All right, we were talking about mini painting.
Yes.
So when you're painting on stream, tell me about your setup. I notice you usually have a light. You have your camera at a certain angle. You have a thing on your desk. You have your paints, your minis. You sometimes you have a holder for the mini. If you want to get into all of that.
The setup has evolved significantly over the my God, 3 years. It's coming up on 3 years that I've been doing this. It was what I started out with. When I first started out, I was this was just at this desk I'm using now, different apartment, but same physical desk. And they just like awkwardly positioned a webcam and had a small desk lamp, and that was really it. That was what I was using at the time for any kind of mini painting, let alone be it streaming or none. Which was, I mean, fine. It's not high quality by any means, but to talk about some of the stuff that has come up via like the various like panels at various conventions that Cypher has done, I would recommend anyone starting out doing something like that to just use a basic like webcam and desk lamp. Give it a shot, because you can definitely get extensive with equipment, but as with anything in this kind of sphere, see if you're going to like it before you put any kind of massive investment in it. And I would say that even to people who have already done streaming, who want to consider doing something like mini painting, give it a try. Don't throw massive amounts of resources at it and go from there. But there are definitely limitations to it that have caused the evolution of that setup. I mean, having a separate desk for it was the first and foremost thing that made it significantly easier. Back in my old apartment, I set up a separate side desk, which I was actually streaming off of my laptop for that one, just to get a slightly different setup, which worked slightly better. But it was easier with that apartment because I had a ton of natural light, which actually really helps with the mini painting. But as time went on, yeah, so the setup I have now, I eventually graduated from using a webcam to a DSLR, which I think at some point for mini painting, if you want really to like grow an audience for it, I hesitate to really gatekeep a lot of stuff behind equipment. I do think it's not a necessity, but you will be definitely at a disadvantage if you try to use a standard webcam for it. Reason being, the most common webcams people use for things like streaming are like the Logitech C922. Like that's like the go-to. It doesn't do well with blues at all. So if I go back and watch some of my earlier streams and things that I'm painting, the blues don't render well on camera at all. Like they look like a completely different shade. So, and when you're doing something like that, oh, and there you go. Yeah, the link to the panel I was referencing. It doesn't work well, and there's issues with like focus. Like it makes the whole thing more difficult. And so that was actually my single biggest and to this date most expensive and most significant stream update I've done, was shifting from using the webcam to the DSLR I have now, which I have to once again give a massive thanks to Stephen, who really helped facilitate that, because I actually upgraded to the same camera that Stephen did and asked his advice on it. And because Stephen is a wonderful, lovely human being, not only did he give me his opinion on the camera, he went and recorded a bunch of focus tests with some miniatures he had, which he then uploaded privately to YouTube for me, so I could see what they looked like, because that's just who Stephen is as a person. Is a wonderful human. So that very much was appreciated, but helped me like cement like, that's definitely the upgrade for me. So and for clarity, the camera I assume Stephen's still using the same camera is the Canon EOS M200, which I'm still trying to figure out exactly the settings for it that will work great for mini painting, but night and day to using a webcam. Like my main issue with it, I still struggle with to this day, is the manual focus. I think what I need to do next is my next experiment is going to be to tweak it to, rather than letting autofocus kick on, set a specific focus and just try to paint in that area. But yeah, lighting is the other massive key thing, for multiple reasons. Not only is it needing like lighting for any kind of camera setup, you can have the best camera set up in the world, be it face, mini, photography, whatever you're doing, lighting is going to have so much more of an impact than the technology you're using. So I use that one. So I've done a bunch of different lighting setups over the years. Started out with just a little crappy desk lamp. I switched eventually to use one that's now actually sitting over there. I got a little like fun like swivel daylight lamp, which helped. And then eventually I've upgraded to the one I have now, which actually what I can do. So I'm just going to move my yogurt pot off the desk so it's slightly less embarrassing. But here we can actually swing over and see the chaos that is my desk. It's obviously, there's an autofocus. Camera's focusing on the mic, not the desk. But upgraded to this buddy over here, which is was definitely a more expensive lamp, but it's one of those true daylight lamps. So helps with, not only does it help make the stream have good lighting, it helps with mini painting in general, because light has such an impact on the way colors render, not just on stream, but just to the human eye. And so by using a daylight bulb, daylight lighting for doing any kind of mini painting or artistry in general, really, you're going to get a much more consistent result using a daylight bulb. So I shifted to use that. That also has the advantage, because it's so big, it washes my face out on the face cam I use while streaming. So that's just a benefit for absolutely everybody. You can see the mini, and I get to be obscured. Brilliant, win-win. Everything else I use is more just tech stuff I want to use to make the actual process of mini painting better. None of it is specifically for stream. So I use things like the paint the mini holders I use. I absolutely swear by those. I have a bunch of the Citadel ones. I have a bunch of small wooden ones that I use blue tack for. I highly recommend doing those for you can just do like old pill bottles or wine corks, like something to stick the mini to. As it completely aside from streaming, that's better because the oils in your hand will destroy the paints over time. So if you're sitting there and just handling it to move it around and paint it, you're going to destroy the work you've done at some point. So similar, I have like latex gloves for larger minis for that same reason, to avoid the hand oils screwing it up.
Okay.
I'm actually very
real
excited
quick.
about
sorry. Real quick, going back to lighting, I
Yes.
did do a Tech Friday on lighting, 3-point lighting for lighting you. So please check that out on my YouTube. And yeah, so go there, check that out. Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I just want to get that in.
And because you can tell, like, it's not on right now because it's daylight, but like I think 3-point lighting was actually one of the bigger game changers to me in like stream quality when I first started really looking into it, because that's why I have 2 Logitech Lytras going, and I have the nano leaves on the wall back here. It's definitely check that out, because like I said, that statement from before about you can have the best camera in the world, if your lighting's crap, it's going to look crap.
Mm-hmm.
Learn lighting, like it, but yeah. So continuing on that topic, actually, is a wonderful segue back to it, because I'm actually very excited, because that's my next big upgrade that I have coming is Redgrass Games, who do a lot of really the stuff's got a little more on the expensive side, but it's very, very high quality. Like the wet palette I use is Redgrass's Everlasting one. They had a Kickstarter a month or 2 ago for a new light that they have developed, which I backed, got in early on that, and that I think is coming out in like September, I want to say. I'm very excited to play around with that, because it got some great feedback from a lot of the mini artists who they had to try it. It's got a very interesting like dual like bulb setup, so you can angle it interestingly. I want to play. I'm very excited to play around with that. But like my setup is janky. It is incredibly janky. Like it is stuff that is clipped onto any random part of the desk I could find. It is in no way a professional setup. It's something I've started to put more focus in of late, because mini painting is a weird space for many, many reasons. But in the context of this, and in the context of tech, mini painting on Twitch isn't a massive thing. If you want to find where the mini painters live, is YouTube. And that's because you get the more stable setup. You can focus on, you can edit, you can get your setup fun and wonky. And for me especially, I find, and I from people I've spoken to, I think this is fairly consistent too, when you're live streaming mini painting, it slows the process down so much. Because when I'm painting, I can just get into a vibe and go, and I'll have either a podcast going, or lately I've been marathoning Clone Wars. But I'll have that going off to the side and boom, just get into focus. Or if one of my friends is streaming, I'll have their stream up going. That's what I was doing after my stream last night. I just sat down, got into a bit of a zone, had Lady Luck's stream up, lovely time. When you're actually doing the stream and constantly like checking in on chat and keeping those conversations going, or in my case, the extremely ranty Saturday streams that tends to happen, it slows the process to a crawl, which is great. I don't mind because I love have those like chatty streams, but that kind of split focus is it definitely slows things down. So I think that's why another reason why some of it tends to happen on YouTube is you get to just get into your zone and then film the whole process, and then you can go back and cut it down, do your time lapses or whatever. So I want to start playing around with some more stuff like that, but time is the large issue with that one. I've seen some really fancy setups that some folks like Miniac, for example, have, where they have a whole like camera. You probably know what's the like I want to say dolly. It's not a dolly, like the rig where you've got the thing where you can slide the camera along it to change the position. There's a technical term for it that's escaping me right now.
I can't think of it right now either, but
yeah, stuff like that. So you've got the rectangular like box over the desk, so you can slide the camera around and it's up real high. That's been my biggest issue with things currently, is the camera is great, but because I need to invest in a taller camera arm for it, because there's been more than one time where I've accidentally bopped it with a paintbrush. Mostly, thankfully, the other end of the paintbrush, but there is, I can look at this lens up right here and I can clearly see the little mark of gray where I accidentally got some paint on the outer part of the lens. I have once gotten paint on the actual lens before, which thankfully I was able to clean off. But I want to get a taller camera arm for that, because this is something I've been looking into a lot lately, is how can I improve the quality of the mini painting streams? Because with the gaming streams and stuff like that, that's easy. Like, the lighting setup for the camera, and especially for doing it, the camera for the face cam is usually just like a small thing in the corner. Great, cool. You've got your stream setup going. That's simple. When the focal point of the stream is the mini, the technical aspect and the focus of that becomes so much more vital. Especially from a standpoint of audience retention. Like if you have gotten into it, and I'm so guilty of this, like you get into that standpoint of you're focused on a bit and you don't realize for a good like 5 minutes that the camera's focus has shifted, and now, as has happened to me many times, the camera has decided to focus on my water pot, and so the mini is out of focus. I think about that a lot from a standpoint of audience retention, is if I'm sitting here on Twitch streaming mini painting and somebody comes by and just sees the mini is out of focus, they're going to bounce immediately because they're going to assume I don't know what the hell I'm doing. So it's definitely an aspect of things that I'm still really struggling with and trying to figure out. And especially because part of it is you have to train your muscles differently, which sounds weird in the concept of mini painting, but frequently when I'm painting minis off stream and not worrying about filming, it's your elbows planted on the desk, it's up in front of the face, great, cool. When you think about it from the standpoint of not just Twitch streaming, but if you were filming for YouTube, for example, I've heard one of the mini painters I follow, a guy named Duncan Rhodes, used to work for Games Workshop, now does Duncan Rhodes Painting Academy. Genuinely one of the most informative tutorial videos I've ever seen. Like Duncan is amazing. And he's talked a bit about how when he started doing that kind of tutorial video, he had to completely change the way he was holding the minis, because you have to think about it in those. And it's going. I may be going off on a little bit of a tangent here, so pull me back if you need. But it's interesting to listen about this type of stuff from corporate needs as well, because if you watch, there's been some changes in the way Games Workshop do their mini painting videos, because they do quick mini painting tutorial videos because it helps them sell the minis. But there's been a few changes they've made in the last few months, where if you go and look over their mini videos now, they don't ever show the presenter's face anymore. There was actually kind of a joke about how they had created only hands, because that's all you could see is the painter's hands. And there's some good and some not so good reasons as to why they made that change. But one of the big frustrations I've heard from people who used to do that, who have now gone on and done their own things, like Duncan Rhodes, Louise Sughammer has now started Rogue Hobbies, her own thing, and she's talked about it a little bit too. When you're doing those tutorials, they don't let you hold the mini upside down. You always have to have the mini like held upright because they want the mini to look marketable at all times during the painting tutorial, but that doesn't make sense for when you're trying to paint it. Like, so some of the tutorials have it this weird angle where they're trying to do this weird thing because they don't want them to hold the mini upside down. So it's as many frustrations as I've had doing that. It's really interesting to see how the professionals do it, and the differences in when you're doing it for a corporate interest versus just doing it for. I mean, I definitely fall on the more hobby side of the streaming thing, but there's a lot of freedom with that is very nice.
All right, and
the other aspect to it from sorry, go on.
Oh, I was gonna move on, but you go with whatever the other aspect, because I was gonna talk about another piece of thing you do on your desk. So
okay, sure. We're continuing on the focus like cameras and lighting. Photography is the other aspect to it that I've been really struggling and trying to learn more about, because I've said multiple times the fastest way to make yourself hate your paint job is to take a photo of it. I've talked endlessly about the 3-foot rule. Like, you're only usually going to be seeing a mini from at least 3 feet away on a tabletop. But when you're trying to take an up close thing for Instagram or whatnot, then you get to easily hyper focus on all of the stuff that you do. But so much of it is lighting. Again, lighting is so key. Like, I when I was kindly invited to go into the Hero Forge stream recently with Cypher and Annika over there, the photograph of the mini was probably one of the best ones I've taken, and it's because I made sure to pick a black backdrop that highlighted the light aspect of the mini well, and I didn't use 3-point lighting for it, I used 2-point, one above and one from the front, and that turned out so much better. And with those what I do now is I take I use pro mode on my my Android phone now to take the raw, and then there's a free app that Adobe have called Lightroom that I just pop it in there. There's a great little auto button I can hit, balances everything, fixes the contrast, and boom, works amazing. So I do that for basically everything I post now, and I could do the same type of stuff in Photoshop, but the fact that there's just an app I can do, and so boom, just makes all the adjustments. Because most people who are posting that type of stuff, they're doing the same damn thing. Like, it's yeah.
Excellent. Oh, I was going to ask, because you're raising up your camera eventually with a pole arm, and you're going to be aiming it down, is that changing do you have to get a different lens too, or is your focal point going to be good enough that since you're moving that angle, you can still focus properly on that? Or do you think
so? I don't know what the exact. I can probably tell you. It's probably written on there somewhere. Yeah, I have a 15 to 45 millimeter lens. So depending on if I were to move it super high up, that would certainly be a problem. But currently, it's so close that I have it zoomed out as far as it can possibly go.
Okay.
So I think I would have a huge amount of room to play with as far as zooming it in. And if it was like ridiculously high up, then I would probably need to look into something like an actual dedicated macro lens for it. But I think that I'm just using the stock lens it came with. I occasionally zoom in a little bit if I'm working on something super small, but I could honestly reasonably, I think I could get close to the damn ceiling in here, and I'd still be fine using the lens I've got with some of the zoom I've tested it with before.
All right. And the other question is, and I talked about this with Cypher Material, is when you're painting on your desk, do you use any type of covering over it so you're not getting all sorts of paint on the wood?
Yeah, so I've always used some sort of cutting mat. The one I use now it's again a Red Grass Games one, which I like because it's got a few little nice like reference things on there, like references for his like paint versus water consistency for whether you're doing a wash or a highlight or a glaze, and it's got a nice little color wheel on it. But prior to that, I used just a standard like green cutting mat from a hobby store. But yeah, I would always use some sort of covering. I use cutting mats because I do so much mini building as well, and I've destroyed my fingers through years of tiny little mini shaving bits off. But yeah, honestly, the only reason I even upgraded to the one I use now is because I accidentally spilled plastic cement over the other one I had, and it absolutely destroyed it. So I had to,
Wow.
I needed a new one. I do kind of I do kind of want to switch out. Like as much as I love the Red Grass games one, I actually wish it was black. Because I've started that's started to become an issue is white balance, and I've noted a lot of the people I watch on YouTube or some of the other. I'm not super active in other mini painters chats usually, but there are a few who I do occasionally lurk in, and they tend to use like darker mats. I think because, like I said, with the mini I worked on with Hero Forge, it worked well with a black backdrop. I feel maybe it's just me. I feel like black's an easier backdrop to work with. I'm not a photography guy. I don't know anything about it. It's just based on my own limited experimentation. It feels like it's easier to highlight something when it's on a black background.
Mhm.
The white tends to wash it out a bit. So I want to see if they make a black one or not at some point, or just switch out. But
All right.
yeah, the protection is it's a cheap desk. It's one I bought off of Amazon for like $100 or something like that. So it's not the best. It's actually, funnily enough, it's actually the same desk Cypher has, which we realized when she was in New York at one point and came by. It's a good desk. It's fine. It's serviceable.
Mhm.
It's not like an ancient antique that I need to keep in pristine condition or anything. But
All right. The most
that's definitely
important
helpful.
question: what do you use to differentiate your water from your paintbrush water?
I like your implication that I do this. Honestly, I have a little fancy paint pot now. I use a Citadel one. The reason I like that one is because it's got a little like ridged bottom to it.
Mm-hmm.
Thing. So it helps with getting the paint off of the bristles. Actually, but if I wasn't using that, I actually was gifted a wonderful set of matching paint glasses, actually gifted to me by Cypher from Punkelnix's store. They're matching like etched glasses, which say paint water and not paint water on them. And what I really like about that is Nick sent actually is a little plastic insert for one of them, which is that same type of thing, a little like ridged, little sticky up bits of plastic in that help get the paint off the bristles. So those are, but I have absolutely many times in the past confused these two things before, which is why I don't use a actual water cup for water anymore. I use a special different thing. And also kind of switched to drinking tea instead because that's easier to differentiate. I do have a horrible habit of licking my paintbrushes, which is probably not the best thing in the world to do, but it's fine.
You're low
I'm
dosing.
sure.
You're either building your immunity or it doesn't. It's so low a dose it doesn't matter. So, one of the two things.
I do actually have to be careful with that though, because there are certain paints I have heard are absolutely amazing that I will not use. And the reason is because they actually do have dangerous metallic elements in them.
Oh wow!
There's I forgot what the name of it. They have like a range like So Flat. Like the So Flat yellow is supposedly amazing, but there's some sort of like metallic like chemical thing into it that absolutely do not lick your brush if you've been painting with that. So I just don't paint with them because I will lick the brush. So I absolutely would do that. So I just don't even make that a consideration for myself.
I see the slidey emote panda.
Yep. And that's, speaking of like tweaks to the setup, that's actually my current big consideration into how to change my mini painting setup is I want to rework it to be able to airbrush. But I haven't figured out the solution yet. Because I may have to wait for that's again one of those things where the camera arm is being a problem, because I need to have a little like booth thing to set up to protect everything from the airbrush overspray, and the camera arm right now simply isn't large enough to do it. So that's again another one of those things where I need to make those tweaks and see what the right solution there is.
Yeah, Zero had
It's always
mentioned.
constantly evolving. Your streaming setup, no matter what you do, it's never done. You're always
Nope.
tweaking it. You're always looking for something to improve. It's an endless hole to sink down.
Speaking of airbrushing, Zero mentioned because I was wondering about airflow and airbrushing paint, and he said there's a like little cube you can get that allows for airflow and doing it inside. So is that something similar what you're looking to, or how would you handle the airflow
No,
issue?
that would be what I would be looking for if I was smart. But I, unlike Zero, think that XPF's foam is a delicious snack and have nowhere near the lab safety protocols that he does. I'm more interested in my concerns are more about overspray and getting the camera angle correct. There are certain aspects to it for safety consideration. I would, because my issue is for me to utilize something like that, I would need to have it would need to be positioned with a window it can take those fumes out of. And for me, in my current place I live, that is simply not possible. Because I've got two windows in this room. There's the one behind me and there's another one there. Even if I were to set up something to go out there, as has been heard several times throughout this, I live on a ground floor apartment in New York City. And if I have that window open enough to put something like that in, the noise coming in from outside is going to be nightmarish. When I eventually move to a different place, I would love to do something more like that. But with the sheer level of street noise that happens outside, it's not tenable for any kind of... Like, I could do it if I wasn't streaming it, perhaps, but it would require completely rearranging my streaming room or my office to where all of my stuff is against that outer wall. And that's going to make the noise issue an even more of a problem than it already is. So instead, it would be more of a case of making sure to wear a respirator.
Okay.
And to do that kind of consideration for safety reasons. But yeah, those things, they're great and they're definitely the ideal. But as I have said numerous times on painting streams, do as I say, not as I do. I have great philosophies and advice that I never follow myself in many, many situations in life. So yeah, when it comes to safety around crafting stuff, listen to Zero, don't listen to me. Or at least do what Zero does. Don't, dear God, never do what I do. I have no idea what the hell I'm doing. I make it all up as I go.
And Springleaf, hello.
The airbrushing is it's amazing. Like it's a game changer as far as the effects you're able to get and the speed with which you're able to paint stuff. But yeah, let it dry. Which I love that phrase because I know how strongly Serious feels called out by it. And that just makes me very happy. It just makes me happy. Also, it's okay if you don't like that. You're just wet blending. It's fine. It's totally fine. Sometimes that can be a valid thing to do. But yes, there's lots of stuff I want to do more with, but I'm somewhat limited by space, and lack of knowledge. So because God knows, you would think that they would do a lot of research into like setup and things like that. No, I don't research anything. I ask Steven to do it for me. It's kind of sad how much I'm not joking about that, but I experiment and try things. If they work, great. If not, like like I said, over the 3 years I've been doing this, the setup has evolved and tweaked, and it will continue to do so. Partly as I get more familiar with it and encounter new issues I need to solve, and partly as different pieces of equipment hit the market that are going to be beneficial for it. As I said, that red grass lamp, I'm very keen to try, and we'll see how other stuff goes.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say on mini painting? Otherwise, we'll move on to the Twitch clip.
I think honestly that covers anything that immediately comes to mind.
All right. So Twitch has introduced a couple new things, and I was talking to Steven about these in his chat. And like, Twitch is doing stuff that is actually useful. Wow.
What a concept, right?
What a concept. So before with Steven, we talked about the Atom plugin for OBS that allows us to take clips or take our video and directly record clips that are usable for YouTube Shorts or TikToks or whatever. So Twitch has put on something similar, but it's specifically to automatically export to YouTube Shorts, but you could always download it and use it wherever you want. So we're going to take a look at that. And Pirate, you said you have been playing with this for a little bit.
I have, yeah. I'm actually very impressed with it. I've been trying to learn more, but I've as part of the AI dub stuff, I've been trying to learn a bit more about YouTube because it's a whole different beast.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one I think one big strength that YouTube has, especially for the shorts, but also just kind of in general, that I think Twitch desperately needs to catch up on, is YouTube's captioning tools are really good. I really, really like YouTube's captioning tools. And so that's been the big benefit for me with it. As I played around with it a little bit, getting some shorts out there, the big benefit for me personally, the big benefit to doing that type of thing, so to utilizing the Twitch thing, as opposed to, because I after that had also spoken to Stephen about the plugin that you talked about with getting the virtual clips. I love it. Super easy to use. I think it's great. I struggle with using it personally, and it's part of just the way that my brain function works is I am terrible at remembering to hit the damn button. And there's also that secondary aspect to it where I constantly second guess myself and don't think I'm very entertaining. So the fact that we've now got the ability through Twitch to create the shorts out of the clips means I have a jumping off point of somebody else clipped this. So somebody other than me thought this was worth capturing. Therefore, this is a good thing for me to start working from. So I absolutely love that. And many of us in the immediate like stream community, many people who are in chat currently have experienced the massive benefit we have, which is Lady Luck 34, the absolute clipping machine that she is. So many of us have a library of clips that Lady Luck has taken of our channels. So we have this immediate resource, and it's so quick to do. Like for me, I don't talk a lot about the day job I do, but I work in e-commerce, and like one of the things in any kind of web design is the more steps you add in doing a thing, the more jumping off points you have for the user to abandon it. You ideally want to be able to get to the end result in as few steps as possible. And I think they've really done a good job with that. Most of us have relatively consistent streaming setups insofar as our overlays. So I like that it recalls exactly, okay, here's where your camera is, here's the part of the screen you want to capture. I like that very much. And the fact that it's a quick, there's a actual integration, because honestly, if it were a thing where it would do it and you say, okay, now you can save it and you can go upload it to places. Candidly, I ain't gonna do it. I'm gonna forget because I've used things like I can't remember the names of I've used a couple of the clip generation sites to do those vertical clips before. I do it like twice and then I forget it exists. So and again, that kind of quick shifting of focus, that if I'm thinking about it, I can go, oh, clip, boom, YouTube short, done. It's in very few steps, and that I think is the big selling point to me, and that it lets me do it before my focus gets lost. And then I can caption it using YouTube's thing. I would honestly love even if it were just for clips, like Twitch, seriously, just take wholesale what YouTube have for their captioning tool, just slap it on your clips. It's perfect. Just do it.
And
Just
hey,
do it.
Twitch, you're owned by Amazon. Amazon has a speech recognition thing. You can maybe mash those together somehow and make magic.
Exactly. But there's limitations to it. Absolutely. Like just taking the clip. Like there's like I think the ultimate, like the big example for me of somebody who does a phenomenal job with creating the custom content for YouTube Shorts is, again, Steven. Like the various clips he's been taking together and throwing the emotes on. I think the use of the emotes on those is excellent. Like that's just good branding. And the captioning styling is consistent. Like that stuff you're not able to do with this. But like I said, for me, with the focus issues I have, this tool fixes so many of the problems with it. The one thing I will say that I do have one complaint, which is that I wish it would let us trim the clip.
Mm-hmm.
That's my one complaint right now, because there's a few, like the clips will frequently get like a little extra padding either side. And so for the YouTube short, I would love to be able to trim it down to just like the 5 to 10 second bit that I want. I wish that was the thing that we would have, but you may be able to do that on the YouTube side, actually.
Yeah, there's a editor in YouTube where you can shorten things, but
but again,
it takes a bit to use.
That additional step. If I could just, as part of the positioning of the frames, just let me set the length. Do it in one step, one-stop shop for everything. Boom, done. Like that would be ideal. But
all right,
I should do that on the YouTube side.
We're going to demo this, and I will note you do have to have a clip. It doesn't work with a highlight or anything else, or your VOD. You have to have made a clip of it, so it has to fit in that however long Twitch gives you for clip. It has to fit in that time, and you do it. And we'll go over to the demo screen. 60 seconds, yeah. I mean, of course, Lady Luck would know that.
Yeah, Lady Luck knows.
Yeah. So here, as you can see, I'm in my content. This is my dashboard. And I'm in clips. You click on the clip. This pops up, and you'll see this new thing, edit and share clip. Click that. And suddenly I have, where do I want the screen? Ah! And that scared me. That's why that's a clip. But
okay.
you can see how it'll look. And I'll pause the audio. And I can move this square. Now, my frustration is that this is rectangular. I would like it to make it more square. But you can increase the size a bit. And so what I'm going to do is move myself over a little more, so I can be fairly center. And I can capture some of my chin above where it says my name. And so you can say default to these for future clips if you want. You can absolutely turn off the channel name, and then you can move this around, and you can see how that does it. Since I was playing a RPG, centering it would. You have to be careful with RPG clips because there's a lot on screen, and sometimes you want the bits that the clip won't necessarily capture, as well as everything in the middle. But this one, fortunately, works well for there's a middle bit where it's a jump scare on me, because walking through those flowers made a noise, and that frightened me. But so you do this. I don't necessarily want to default this, but yeah, so you have your typical grabby things. You can shrink it down, you can highlight it, and then down below, hold on just a second, let me put the subtitles up above everything. Hold on here. And then we'll expand this window down so you can see everything. So down here on the bottom right of the screen is next. And also you can do, on the side here, you can do split or full, and it'll just be the video if you don't want yourself in it. And you click next, and you label it, and you share to YouTube Shorts, and you can make it public or private. It'll download it, and that's it. Very straightforward, very simple, very excellent way. And maybe you don't use the OBS, the Atom vertical plugin for OBS, because that's a mouthful, or you don't use OBS, or so this is another option. And I constantly talk about different tools you can use and this is another tool you can use if it works for you, like it works for Pirate. So yeah.
I will say a bit of a forewarning. The one issue I did encounter with it, and I don't know if this was just me or if it's a bug with it that I had discovered, I did find if you hit the share to YouTube prior to that rendering bar being done, because it implies on the UI that they're separate functionality. I don't necessarily think that that's true, because the first time I tried it, it never made it to YouTube. I think it's because I tried to do it prior to that rendering being completed. Every other time I've waited for that to be done and it worked fine. So I suspect that there's some combination of like sequencing of events that I assume it's meant to catch up, but maybe it was a one-off for me. But I did have an issue with that not working. So
yeah.
I would
So wait for it to render.
for the rendering to be done.
And let me go back, show you what that looks like. And you can instantly download your clip as well. If you did want to edit it, here's an option for you. Again, it's an extra step, like Pirate pointed out. But you can do that and put it in any video editor, or you can just share, and whether it's public, private, or unlisted, you have those options. You can write your description and all that. So yeah. Still waiting for
the bulk down.
Yep.
To be fair, Lady Luck, you are kind of an edge case. I don't think they have many power users when it comes to clips, but yeah, not wrong. That's I would love something like that. Bulk download would be phenomenal. Yeah, what I would shooting for the star save, what I would actually love is not just bulk download. I'd be able to love to bulk download by game category.
Yes.
Like if I could filter down to the clips people took of me playing like Final Fantasy VII and just download all of those, that would be amazing. Because for my little highlight reels that I've done, having to go through and do those all one at a time, if I could just bulk down all of those into a quick like sizzle reel, that would be great. I'd love that. But I understand that that's possibly a bit more of an edge case and not really what they want clips to be used for. What does make me happy about it is I think it represents an investment in what they have said they want clips to be. Because this actually came up in a conversation or a panel at TwitchCon last year, where one of the things that was talked about, and I think this is something that Lady Luck has said that she wants in the past too, is essentially like a searchable like clip library, like a rotating clip carousel of various channels. And I think that's great because they're great for that type of quick promotion. The issue they had, and the reason they haven't done anything like that, and I do think it's a valid reason, is because clips can be taken by anyone. They don't want something like that without also building in the tooling for streamers to be able to opt in the clips specifically that they want to be shown. So I think that that's a valid reason to not do something like that. But I'm hoping that in the end that they give us something like that, because as we all know, discoverability on the platform is an absolute bleeding nightmare, and clips are the perfect way to do that kind of thing. And it's honestly, it's a little surprising to me that Twitch haven't leaned into it a little more, given the way that media consumption has shifted to this much more short form content. Like the success of not just TikTok but YouTube Shorts seems to have taken off phenomenally well. I'm a little surprised that Twitch haven't jumped onto it more, given that they have the clips right there and ready for them to use. Their short form content is already on the platform. So I wouldn't be surprised if at some point we see a bit more of an investment in that. But again, I think the tooling for it to make sure the streamer has control over what goes into it is a vital component of that. But hopefully we get there. And yeah, go back and look through for the years old clips. Like just because they're old doesn't mean they're not relevant,
right?
Like especially like one thing I would love to do for example, with my 3 years and affiliate anniversary is coming up in like 2 months. That's the ideal opportunity to go back and search those old clips for like, here's over the last 3 years, here's how things have evolved, here's how things have increased. And yeah, I think it's a cool thing to be able to do. Just give us the power tools for the power users for clips. Like that's just honestly just Twitch, just consult with Lady Luck. Just bring her on as a consultant, let her create your clip roadmap and you know, you'll be set. You'll be set.
Hire Lady Luck for all the things.
Stares into the middle distance wishfully. That's it. Yep. Just the fading images of dreamed about clipping functionality playing over sad Sarah McLachlan music. Just, yeah.
All right. We're getting close to 2 hours here. So let's think about wrapping up. Is there any tech for anything that you're looking forward to in the near future? Doesn't have to be streamer tech. You know.
I'm trying to categorize this into tech I'm looking forward to versus tech that scares the crap out of me, because that second list is a lot larger. But I think, yeah, so far as tech I'm looking forward to, I mean, I already talked about this, the lights up thing I'm really looking forward to. I honestly, on my to-do list is actually to go back and rewatch Your Tech Friday from last Friday, because we talked about the various like video editing stuff I've been doing with AIW. I'm reaching a point now, as I'm getting more and more complicated with the stuff I'm doing, it's another reason I need to look into a video card upgrade at some point. So I need to go back and rewatch your chat with Steven about the upcoming video cards, and I need to start actually putting thought into that purchase now, because I'm starting to hit kind of some system limitations on, like, Premiere Pro has crashed on me a couple of times because I've pushed it beyond what my system is really able to handle. So as I go back and dig into that, and, you know, like I said, not do my own research and ask Stephen and you to just do it for me. But yeah, that type of stuff is definitely like the video card evolution and stuff becoming. Computex is only a week away from the mid-tier stuff just coming out. See, there you go. See, why research? I can just ask Stephen. But yeah, that type of video upgrade, like that's the stuff I'm very much excited about. And honestly, like like longer term, I'm actually kind of very excited to move, because it's outside of the scope of any of this. I'm a huge nerd for home automation. Like, I got my Philips Hue lights, my voice controlled stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I love that, and I want to get. I one of my like dream frivolous purchases for myself is I want voice controlled blinds. I want to be able to just tell, like, when I wake up in the morning. I want that Star Trek life. I want my corporate spy device to be able to open the blinds for me. Just the ridiculous, silly stuff like that. I'm actually a huge nerd for. So that's separate tangent. So getting into a place where I can look into things like that would be good. Ask Steve's, the search engine for streamers. So yes, love that.
So speaking of home automation stuff, I recently invested in this thing called SwitchBot, which is, you know, not a switch you may be thinking about, but it's a little white plastic square that lives up on my wall, because that's where I stuck it. Gives me humidity, temperature, but also controls my light bulbs above me. And there is a thing for it that you can attach to blinds, where I can control the blinds on my phone.
See, that's why. Also, speaking of home automation, somebody's at my door. I will be right back.
Okay. All right. So how y'all doing? And Rex, oh wow, you take notes. That's awesome. I'm glad you're getting value out of these talks. I'm so glad that everyone shows up for these. I love doing them. I love talking to people about their tech passions. It's exciting for me, and I get to learn a lot too, because some things I have no idea about, and other things are just not commonly shared out there. I have a hard time finding videos on it, or it's explained in a way that's good for, you know, you, but I deal with producing videos with lots of people, and so it doesn't necessarily always cover that. And it's a different mindset when you're going into streaming for you versus streaming with multiple people. And so I try to cover that angle a little more. But I'm so glad. And Layla, you revisit the YouTube videos. That it fills me with joy that people are watching and engaging with the content. Really love it, and because I love doing this. So welcome back,
Yeah, they
Pirate.
are phenomenally informative. It's been great.
Thank you. All right. So we are at 2 hours. So let's, Pirate, plug all your things and outro yourself.
I shall do so. As Kiros is here to say hello. Yeah, so again, Chris Caniz, aka the Painting Pirate, he, him pronouns, variety streamer, miniature painter, do a whole bunch of other nonsense. I will be live tomorrow. So streaming usually Mondays, Thursdays, and Saturday, which will be true this week as well. I'll be live 3 p.m. Eastern tomorrow for some mini painting. But also this week, there will be the very, very special Sunday bonus stream, 1 p.m. Eastern. We are doing the fundraising event Clash for Charity, the first ever all influencer wrestling premium live event, which is for those who are not aware, has a card which has been entirely booked by people who donated to my St. Jude Play Live campaign. Again, speaking is not one of my skill sets. It's going to be a wildly chaotic card because the audience booked the matches. So it is going to be hopefully a whole lot of fun and a lot of work for poor Wrestling Universe Stephen Joyce, who has been booked on 4 matches on an 11 match card. Because Stephen is surprising nobody, the fan favorite. But yeah, looking forwards to that. It's going to be some fun times. And yes, that's going to actually be my evening and time tomorrow, is going through and applying some of those tweaks and improvements we talked about earlier and getting that ready for the longest AIW stream I've probably ever done. So.
Amazing. I know it'll be awesome because just we can go back and watch your YouTube videos of them all and just see all the work going into them. Tripping Crutch, hello.
Go watch them and subscribe. Subscribe while you're there. I want to get that 1,000 followers so I can make money off this stuff. I got 50. I need 1,000. Go subscribe to the YouTube.
Hit that subscribe button.
I need all the help I can get. In general, not just for that, but that's that's another conversation. Hey, Tripping Crutch. Yeah.
Anything else you want to plug or talk about?
I think that's most. Actually, you know what? Yeah, just because I always plug it, because it's the project that I've been involved in, I'm probably the most proud of. I'm going to plug Court to Crystal real quick. It's the TTRPG actual play podcast I've been a part of. Season 1 is up on wherever you get your fine podcasts and your bad podcasts too. We throw it everywhere. Hearthsingertales.com is the place to go to find all the information about that. That's where I play my lovely badger boy, Brock, who is also present in All Influencer Wrestling and is getting led around by bad people just as much as he does during that show. As it's a hour-long audio-only podcast, and I had an absolute blast doing it. We're currently gearing up to try and schedule the recording of season 2. So it's a good time to go and listen to season 1. So check it out. And yeah, that's where I learned a lot of audio editing stuff that I'm applying to AIW as well. So go check that out.
Yeah, check out Pirate and all the things.
That's it. I don't have any other appearances coming up. So.
And programming note, next week Tech Friday will be on Saturday. Tech Friday on a Saturday, I know, but I get to talk to Lauren Urban, and we're going to talk about audio podcasts. And so I would rather have a guest on and talk to them at a time convenient for them and both of us than stick to this being every Friday. So if you want to come on,
that be at the usual time slot?
Yes, that'll be at the usual time slot. We worked it. Cool. We worked it out. That'll still be noon Pacific time, 3 p.m. Eastern. So check that out. And again, these go up on my YouTube either Monday or Tuesday, depending on my time over the weekend. Again, like Pirate, it's just me.
Yep.
So depending on my time to edit this down a little bit, look for it on Monday or Tuesday up on my YouTube. And let's see here. I will be back Monday with more Tears of the Kingdom because it's an awesome game, and I'm a huge Zelda fan, and I will keep playing this until I'm done with it. Uh, I'm not collecting all 900 Korok seats, though. No, that's never happening. But that's a lot and way too much. But come by, check out those streams. Let's see what else. I should plug what I'm doing, shouldn't I? I have a panel at Gen Con. Another producer panel, this time with Josh Simons. If you don't know Josh, he is an excellent producer over at Demiplane and their community manager. And I will look for that link in a moment. Of course, I don't have it, right here like I should, like a real streamer might. So check that out. If you're going, add it to your wish list now, and then Sunday is when all the events go live. So, be there on Sunday to get your ticket for the event if you happen to be going to Gen Con. So that'll be a lot of fun. Looking forward to that. I did this last year as well. Josh said he was going due to his work and was looking to be on panels. I'm like, hey, you want? I'll do a panel if And so yeah, he agreed to. Maybe he'll rethink that decision after we have the panel, but I don't know. In the near future, probably in the fall, I'll be starting a D&D live play, which I will be DMing and producing, and so more details of that over on a different channel will come when I have everything organized and ready to share, but that should be September, October-ish, so look for that. If you like folk horror, it's going to be folk horror.
Ooh, nice.
Because I like folk horror a lot. And so we're going to explore some of the tropes around that and dive in. Looking great. And let's see what else. Can't think of anything else. I think that's everything. I don't know anymore. I'm doing things. Follow me on Twitter. You can see the things. And while you're subscribing to Pirates YouTube, go over to my YouTube and hit the subscribe button too. It's free. It's just a URL away. But you can find all my stuff under dclasair.bio.link right there. I will be creating a web page pretty soon for myself. So yay.
Nice.
I'll involve Notion. Speaking of Notion, I make templates for the TTRPG community in Notion. Check all those out. The first link there is if you want a DM screen or player's journal and just some other quick keeping track of things templates. Those are there for you. The other one is my big project, the actual play production template. If you want what everyone voted on Twitter, we're calling the Lasair method. So if you want to dig into the Lasair method, check out that second link there and follow them through, and it'll take you from pre-production to post-production on a show and give you a record of that episode. So, okay. I think I might. Any other thoughts, Pirate, before we...
I think I'm good. This was wonderful fun. Like I love just getting on and getting to just a brain vomit all about the process.
Yeah.
Don't really get to talk about that type of stuff often. I think it's always fascinating to get the peek behind the curtain on how all this type of stuff works. So I've enjoyed these, and it's been great to be a part of one.
Yay, and thank you for coming on, sharing everything. Once again, Painting Pirate. Check them out. Painting Pirate. Just about everywhere, right? There's a...
Yeah, some variation of underscores, but because I'm terrible at consistent branding, but just visit paintingpirate.com it does exist. It's an actual functional site. So go there and you'll find links to everything from there. So.
Excellent. All right. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. Stick around. We are going to go on a raid. Let me first refresh Twitch to make sure that the people who are on are actually on, because that's a thing.
Yep.
And so stick around for that. Thank you all for being here. Once again, next week, Tech Friday is going to be on a Saturday. Just move it next week. Tech Friday one day is going to be on a Saturday. I have double audio going. Hold on. Okay. There. So I said it again if you heard that over stream. Sorry. Audio came up on Twitch when I refreshed because, I refreshed. Herb is on. He's watching that show that I can't think of the name of. Citadel, yes. So we're going to go over, say hi to Herb. You can watch that if you have Amazon Prime. And yeah, so we'll go over there. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Painting Pirate, for being here. Have a great weekend. Please be kind to others, be kind to yourself, and I'll see you on Monday. Bye.